Hey Chelsea fans, welcome to CFC Unfiltered. I'm your host Anirudh, and CFC Unfiltered is a channel for Chelsea fans by a Chelsea fan. And in this channel, I will give you my honest and unfiltered reaction to all things Chelsea, be it transfers, be it rumors, be it stories emerging in and around the club, or giving you my pre-match and post-match thoughts. So, before further ado, let's get to it. So today in today's video, I will discuss about the new Donarumma situation. I told you a few videos ago that we will keep an eye out in the situation, and basically, if the situation develops, we'll see. So there have been some recent updates there. There's also the new center backs, right? Because a lot of people are dismissing it. So I will tell you a little bit background about what is really going on, something that most videos will not discuss, of what exactly may or may not happen. Some journalists are not telling you. So I will tell you a bit about that, and also what's going on with Garnacho, Nicholas Jackson, Simmons, and more. So if you do like the content, please do like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon. This channel is only a few days old, and we need all the love we can get. So please, if you do like the content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. It's only a few days old, and yeah, it will be awesome to have you at the start of this journey. So, yeah, before further ado, let's get to the main discussion. So, let's start. I'm going to start with Donarumma and Nico Jackson, and then maybe Garnacho, and then moving on to the center back, because for you it will make sense when I discuss all of these things uh, in connection to one another, I think. So, yeah, let's just discuss with the. First of all, let's go up with Garnacho because that is, heating up. So on Monday, Fabrizio Romano comes on the zone. He has this partnership with the zone, and he basically said Garnacho has told Man United, it's either Chelsea or I'm prepared to stay here and don't play football in 6 to 12 months. Now, I'll I'll be reacting to this, and also that basically Fabrizio Romano has said that Chelsea have stepped up talks, and then there are towards the final stages of the discussion apparently. So yeah, let's react to this. So first of all, the first part, in which we saw Garnacho basically say, Chelsea or I stay here, don't play football for 6 to 12 months. So you have to. So I'll give you a bit of context because Chelsea fans have had a mixed reaction. In a way, they are kind of happy because it helps Chelsea in negotiation tables and get a low price. Uh, in a way, it is also bad because it reflects the attitude of the player poorly, and what may happen in Chelsea if he comes to Chelsea. So I think there has been a concern. I would say, it is good that Chelsea fans have a measured approach in a way, because you see a lot of other fans from a lot of other clubs who are kind of celebrating some other players basically threatening to not never play again for a certain club. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, so I will also give you a bit of context. So the thing is that the reason Garnacho is just not out of the blue that he's saying, that it's either Chelsea or I stay here and not play football for 6 to 12 months. There is, if you go like a week or two back, right? So you will see this news coming out of Manchester United, in which basically Ruben Amorim and some of the senior United figures basically told Garnacho that either if Chelsea, you are going to be, you should hope that you are sold, and then basically that if Chelsea do not meet the 50 million valuation that we have for you, that you're not going to, we are going to rot in reserves or something like that. That was basically the news coming out of United, right? And of course, United at then have seen that Chelsea are not going beyond the 30 billion valuation mark that they have for him. So Garnacho, in response to this, from the from what has come out of Manchester United in their social media handles and their connected handles, from the looks of it, it is the response to that threat that, if Chelsea do not meet this valuation, then you're going to rot here. You're not going to play football. He's like, either it's Chelsea or I don't play football. So it's a game of poker, guys. Don't, I would say not to judge Garnacho in this situation, because we are looking at a very isolated statement given by Romano. You're not looking at what led to this point, and that is why I'm not backing Garnacho. I'm not defending Garnacho. I'm not going against Man. I'm just saying that, if someone basically threats you and says this, you may either, say what Garnacho said, or maybe keep your tongue and be more tactful. So, and honestly, can anyone say that if someone that said that to us, we wouldn't have the same response to Garnacho? I don't know. Okay, but I think if we are being honest to ourselves, some of us will go and say this, right? So I would say not to basically judge him in this situation, because Man United basically made this play, and then Garnacho has made this play, and it is Man United and Ruben Amorim who have put Garnacho in this bomb squad. Because if you go back to last summer, there were, some rumblings about Garnacho which kind of start developing, especially towards January transfer window, and coming up to then the final, which basically Ruben Amorim basically went on to say that you better hope to find a club. Now, that was most likely either in response to Garnacho's statement coming out of the final, but either way, if you want to sell a player and he's not part of your plans, that is acceptable. What you don't do is, publicly, if you want like 70 million, which what United wanted, then you don't go and say that, right? I You can take a look at an example of Nicholas Jackson. So the manager has not, gone and, publicly named and shamed him. He has supported him. It would have been very easy for him to do that. He got red card when team needed him, and then he got another red card 2 games later on, when again it cost the team. But, Enzo Fernandez, Enzo Maresca, my mistake, did not go publicly shame and name them. We did hear the rumblings later on with Nico Jackson that, uh, that there are certain developments in terms of his transfers, but he did not get put into this because Chelsea wanted to keep his valuation, and Enzo Maresca wanted to keep the door open. So it is the same with Garnacho. So it is on Man United and Ruben Amorim who has decreased their value. So they're asking for 50 million pounds, and basically Chelsea have their valuation of 30 million. They are not going above that, and that is frustrating Manchester United. Also, apparently there is a journalist involved, a named journalist involved, in which he's feeding some of the information to Garnacho, and which is basically, or maybe it's the other way around. It's Garnacho feeding information. Journalists, I'm not sure. I think it's journalists feeding information to Garnacho, and maybe there is a Chelsea connection there. That basically what it's basically strengthening Chelsea's negotiating power, and basically reducing Manchester United negotiation power. and that's basically frustrating Man United because they're hoping that they can get some sort of funds, and Chelsea are not going beyond this valuation. So you have to understand from Chelsea's perspective, and this has come out of Fabrizio Romano himself, right? That Chelsea see him Garnacho as a market opportunity. Okay, they don't see him necessarily as a necessity, but they see him as a market opportunity. And we saw with the market other market opportunities with Chelsea valuation. We have seen with Mike Manuel that Chelsea had a valuation and AC Milan had a valuation, right? And we did not go past that, right? We had a 15 million, we walked away. I think it's a similar situation. If either Chelsea will make sure that, I think the final transfer fee will be somewhere around 25 to 35 million pounds, including add-ons and everything else. And I think Chelsea will not move from this because the fact is that Manchester United, what they have done with Shesko deal is basically they have kind of overstretched themselves. Man United fans will not admit that, right? I would not want to admit that and because according to them they can spend another 100 million. It's not a problem, but it is a problem, and I can tell you now because what Man United are doing, for those of you who do not know, so they have something called rolling credit. So that it's a rolling credit is basically it's kind of like a credit card. You can you know if you have some undue paid fees, you can then just roll it to next month and the one after that, whenever you can pay. um, and basically they have some, and then they are kind of maxing out, they have kind of maxed out their credit. And even there, I think there needs to be some sort of payment at a certain point of time, because we all use credit cards, right? So we know if we do not pay at a certain point, the certain amount, then there is going to be some increase in the value in terms of interest rate. So it's the same with the Man United. If they do not pay a certain amount, and so they are going to be having big problems, and they forget about signing anyone. They will have problems with the players they have signed, and Chelsea basically are banking on that, because if you remember, Garnacho talks has speeded up once the Shesko deal went down, right? Once the Shesko deal happened, only then Chelsea's immediately you heard the news that Chelsea have started official talks with Garnacho, because that is what Chelsea were waiting for. Chelsea were waiting for Manchester United to get desperate enough. This kind of happened with Liverpool and Newcastle United again with the ATTK, but what happened there was Liverpool were able to get out of it. They needed to make sales, because if you heard from Bruce Romano before, that they needed to make sales before they went for the striker, but they signed for a TTK, because when they saw Newcastle United going for him, they were like, we will do the sales later on. Let's just get the striker. So they got the striker. They spent the money, and then you saw them selling Darwin Nunes, and same with Luis Diaz. So basically, they got that sort of deal done, right? And despite their early evaluations, it was much lower in case of Luis Diaz. Is the same for Man United. When Newcastle went for Sesko in their desperateness because of the Isaac situation, Man United also got a bit desperate. And they, who are we going to get? We are not going to get anyone, and then this and that, and then they kind of that is the reason why they kind of waited. It was just not for the buy-in from the player, but they were also like, how exactly are we going to make the financial work? So they have overstretched themselves, and Chelsea know that. So that is what Chelsea are banking on. Chelsea also know that if Man United have any ambitions of bringing any other players, they will have to make that sale. So Chelsea are basically, just biding their time, and they're like 30 million, 30 million, 30 million. Man United are like 50 million, because Chelsea kind of know that Man United will come down from their valuation. They have already come down from 70 million valuation to 50 million. I think Chelsea will make sure that this deal happens. I think this deal is happening. Uh, And for Chelsea, when I would say it's a 30, if it's a 30 35 million, I don't think either of us should have any problem, because ultimately what's going to happen is that either he will succeed at Chelsea, or he'll play, he won't be great, he won't be bad, he will just be good and decent, and we'll get some sort of moments from him. And then basically we will just flip him off and maybe sell him to Arsenal or something like that for profit. So yeah, so I think it's an opportunity signing, it's nothing more than that, and we should then wait and watch what happens as situation develops. But this is basically the background I wanted to give you guys, based on that. Now, this discussion went for 15 minutes. Wow. So, a little bit about the Donarumma situation. So, this came, yesterday, that basically Chelsea and Man United have recently inquired about Donarumma. I told you that there were stories with before the Club World Cup, and then it developed into something that Chelsea most likely did inquire. So Chelsea and Man United have inquired, and Fabrizio Romano also came out with the story that basically what's happening is that Chelsea are not looking actively for a goalkeeper, but this is like an opportunity market, and that is why they have inquired basically, right? And then Simon Johnson, right, someone who is in the know with Chelsea, have said again and again. So he has basically said that Chelsea have been, in the goalkeeper market for the whole season. It's just that they have been doing inquiries and this and that, but nothing serious. They've just been like, okay, we can go for him, we can go for him, we can go for him. But if anything happens, and if anything develops, it will be later in the window. It won't be now. And Chelsea, when this situation has started to develop in the last few hours, with Donarumma also coming out and making a statement with PSG, because PSG have signed, Chevalier. Uh, it was basically because Donnarumma will be most likely available, and Ben Jacobs recently, because he's kind of mixed bag, but he's kind of saying that PSG, after looking at Milan with the Mike Maignan situation, has basically put a similar price tag, looking at the transfer window, and of course looking at his age, similar contract, and of course he was better. You could say had a better season than Mike Maignan. So this is also that. Now Chelsea fans, I've seen a bit torn with the Donnarumma suggestions. Some so-called experts, of course, are saying he should go for Donnarumma. Chelsea fans are, of course, torn. They, because if you remember the AC Milan game, on Sunday, when we were playing AC Milan and Mike Maignan was there, Chelsea fans were chanting to Mike, you are just a shit Robert Sanchez. Uh, so Robert Sanchez's last few performances, his stock has gone up. Chelsea fans, Chelsea hierarchy, see him not necessarily as a liability as was the case, earlier. And there is a case for keeping Sanchez, and I think Chelsea are like, if the cost makes sense, and if Donnarumma, let's say, is ready to come in with the our structure in terms of wage structure, then maybe we go and sign him. And if it doesn't make sense in terms of finances, then we don't. I think it's one of those. And I think the way we have inquired, because this is the second inquiry, right? First time was in and around the Club World Cup final, and this is the second time you have gone and inquired. So we are definitely in for it, and you should understand, Man United, are looking at him. And recently there are stories about Man City as well, right? And there is a Pep Guardiola team that likes to play with feet, and there are a lot of criticism with Donnarumma, and Chelsea's fans have a lot of, let's say, concerns that he won't be able to play with his feet. But he is playing with PSG. Man City are reportedly interested. So I would say these are experts, I would say more of transfers than maybe you and maybe me, and they would know more about these players, how well can they fit. And if Man City is interested, I think it shouldn't be a problem with Chelsea being interested in this player, right? He's decent on the feet. He's really good shot stopper. He's definitely in the top five in terms of shot stopping ability. Uh, the only thing, of course, is the finances. I think Chelsea will see it as a bonus signing, as an opportunity signing. That is what Fabrizio Romano said. That they will see him as an opportunity signing. They will discuss possible possibilities with him. You know, if it's possible, if it finances make work, then they will go for him. If not, then it's not a problem. We will go with Sanchez, and we will of course see how Penders goes and develops in, of course, Strasbourg, because he is basically earmarked as a future number one. So we will see how this situation develops in the next coming hours, because it is developing in the Super Cup. Donarumma is excluded, so this is situation is going to develop fast. If it's going to develop in terms of summer, we already have, I think, about 2 weeks now left remaining with the summer transfer window. So we will see how this develops. Yeah, so now I want to discuss about you with Xavi Simmons. We already there haven't been major updates, but we saw the possible negotiations were going between Chelsea and Xavi Simmons. I told you about Chelsea wanting basically some sort of swap deal with Nkunku. Recently, there have been rumors about Nkunku possibly being activated for Bayern Munich. We will see how this story develops. I will also be doing a video maybe later on, seeing if how the situation develops during the day. Also with Nico Jackson, Jackson is not discussed, sorry, but there is this discussion about Tariq George, right? We already saw that story broke down with Romano, and of course there was Chukwuemeka, who we were hearing that Dortmund, are discussing that, but that has gone down, right? Because Chelsea, I think, see that Dortmund are trying to blackmail, and Chelsea are like, we will keep our valuation, so either you buy it or we sell it to someone else. And I think that message is most likely going to Chukwuemeka as well, because there has been no movement. Certainly, there was a lot of speed, when the three deals happened, that this whole deal is going to happen, but that has gone down. So that might still be a possibility, but it is more likely that it is Tariq George or maybe Nkunku rather than Chukwuemeka, because his preference is Dortmund. But recently, yesterday, right, Sacha Tewori, I hope I'm getting his name right, basically came out that Man City have entered the race. Now, till now, Fabrizio Romano has not said a word about it. So, first of all, because now that story came out because Savinio from Man City is most likely going to Tottenham. They are negotiating something around 70 million. It's a good money. So in that dynamic, you know, I don't think it makes any sense for Man City going for Xavi Sevens to going to Man City. It's because after the story was like people panicked, Chelsea fans panicked, and this is happening. But if you, because the only story that Fabrizio Romano in terms of Man City has gone out with is with regards to Rodrigo, and if you look at it, it doesn't make sense for Man City go for another 10-ish player. Xavi Simmons is a kind of a 10. That doesn't make sense for Man City losing Savinio and going for another 10. It doesn't make sense because they already have Foden, who's kind of number 10-ish. You already have Bernardo Silva, right? You have Marmoush, who is who's been there for last few months, and we have Ryan Cherky, right? They already have four players who are kind of in that ilk of 10, 10 and a half kind of player, which is Simmons is. So why would you want another player there, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense, and they're losing a winger, so they will most likely want to go and upgrade maybe a winger, or maybe get a different one rather than the same one, right? So it doesn't make sense for Man City doing that sort of business. So I think that that is something that Chelsea fans should remember. Maybe think logically, because Sacha Tavori is not Fabrizio Romano. He's on David Onstein. He's like a tier three, tier four Nizar Kazalia type of, because Nizar Kazalia came with a story, 2 days ago about something, and that I think it was completely opposite. One day after, Fabrizio Romano came with a different story altogether. So you have to not panic until it comes from trusted sources like David Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano that this is actually happening. Until now, Fabrizio Romano has not reported any anything on Man City. He's also only said that Chelsea wants Xavi Simmons and Xavi wants Simmons wants Chelsea. That is it. And you also remember Eli Barrett. That story you came out with, his contact Eli Barrett. Eli Barrett, is an important person in this deal. He does most of his business from Chelsea, right? So he would want his client to go to Chelsea. It wouldn't make any sense for him than to, backstab Chelsea and go and do anything with Man City because they're not doing business, a lot of business with him. And if a lot of business is going to come, it's going to come with his relationship with Chelsea and Chelsea owners. So he will want to make a deal with Xavi Simmons for Chelsea. So that story doesn't make any sense, and it has not been confirmed by any top source. It has been more than 12 or 24 hours since that story came out. No one has confirmed it, so that story is don't worry about it. I would say, so just focus. That I think the story is developing. There have been unconfirmed reports that Chelsea have more or less agreed a deal with RB Leipzig. So yeah, I would say let's not get worried about when these stories come out. That Man City are going for from unconfirmed sources like such as Tavori. So or Nizar Ghazali or someone like that. Let's not get worried unless it's from a trusted source like David Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano. Who have not said a word about this supposed Man City going for it. The only thing they have gone for is Rodrigo, right? From Real Madrid. So let's keep on to this. I know some people are apparently getting bored of this saga, but I mean, it is what it is. Chelsea are confident they have their position. We saw this with Hato deal as well because there have been some stories that Chelsea want to pay only 50 million, Leipzig are holding out for 60 million, and we have seen that under this ownership, that Chelsea in deal like this, and especially when the owners are involved, they go and do the business in the last week of the window, and which is what I expect now in terms of Xavi Simmons deal, is that it's going to most likely happen in the last week. Garnacho may happen slightly earlier. It depends on how quickly can we uh, basically beat them in the matter of wills, right? So who has greater will? And I think Chelsea know that when we are in a precarious situation because of the Shesko saga, so that is what they are banking on. So yeah, let's move on. So I want to talk to you about a bit about, because these are unconfirmed stories. Something has come out of Athletic, and I was just want to get at it because it's already a lot of video has been covered. So I just want to get into it and make a video maybe separately as these stories develop. So bit about Nicholas Jackson. So one thing has come up that he would prefer a move to Newcastle, and there apparently have been talks between him and his representatives between Newcastle and Jackson, right? Chelsea's asking price is about £80 million. That is what they're keeping on, and that also a story has come out of Athletic that Chelsea, if the transfer doesn't happen, they're not you know overly fussed about it. They're okay with it. He'll be reintegrated into the squad. So their story has been Chelsea are kind of positioning themselves that we are not desperate to sell him. Okay, we can keep him. If it doesn't happen, but if he's sold, he will be sold on our terms. That is basically, and there's probably a lot going on that we do not know because Fabrizio Romano keeps on saying Jackson and Newcastle. Whereas we have heard stories about Newcastle going for some other strikers, like there was one with the FC Porto, like we were linked like 1 or 2 seasons ago, and then recent hours Rasmus Højlund as well. So they're looking at different situation because the Isaac situation has gotten interesting. We all know about what Isaac has recently come out from David Ornstein about him not playing for Newcastle like ever. So Newcastle are in precarious situation. It's only 2 days, I think, it opens now. Since the Premier League gets back up. So we will see how the situation develops. Newcastle, I think Chelsea are banking on that Newcastle will get desperate and basically splash the cash because they have already shown their hand, right? They already shown their hand at EK and the Shasko deal, and Chelsea think that Jackson is above these players, right? So they're like, we know you have the money, so either pay up or we're okay with keeping him. So that is what Chelsea's position, and that is what we are hearing in the media. We will see how this story develops because apart from the Newcastle thing, I don't think Jackson is going anywhere. If it doesn't happen with Newcastle, he's not going anywhere, and we will see how this situation develops. One more word on the center back. So I wanted to bring this up because there have been a lot of dismissive people that we're not going for center back, and we want a center back. Then Nizar Kazalia went up. Oh, Chelsea do not want a center back, and Fabrizio Romano less than few hours later completely dismisses the story. Chelsea are in for a defender in case of good market opportunity. And if you look at the earlier Fabrizio Romano briefing, which came out, after the Levi Colwill injuries issue was came out, he was like, Chelsea are not looking to sign any defender in terms of emergency plan. So you see the difference between, and I told you in the last video what has happened is most likely that they needed to have a discussion about the defender, and since that a discussion has happened, what I can tell you, which managers are not maybe telling you, is that Chelsea have had since Levi Colwill's injury, Chelsea have started making inquiries on defenders. So before the Mark Gui deal, which is happening right now with Liverpool, he's agreed apparently the personal terms, and it's going to be a 35 million deal or something like that for Liverpool. Chelsea did make an inquiry for Mark Gui. They made an inquiry for Jared Braithwaite from Everton and another defender, and this is coming from Alex Goldberg, who has plenty of good sources in and around Chelsea. So he, basically said this is basically he knew, and there are more likely to be more inquiries which are being made. So what's happening, Chelsea fans, is, and the Fabrizio coming out with this couple is, as I said, they at that point in time when Levi Colwill injury came out, they only probably had known maybe for a few minutes, maybe a few hours, and they didn't really have a discussion or maybe accept the news, and basically have a logical meeting which looks at solutions of what can be done. And maybe they needed time to accept that what exactly is going on, what can we do. And there have been, and also Chelsea do not want to raise the price of defenders, so they don't want the value to shoot up. So what is happening, guys, is that Chelsea have started making inquiries, and I think what is going to happen is once the Xavi Simmons and Garnacho deal happens and some exits happen in the last week of the window, we will see the story develop. I think Chelsea will sign a centre back. I think what is happening is this week most likely we will hear stories Chelsea and for this, Chelsea and for that, as the week goes on, as the Premier League starts, and there will be few more stories coming out that Chelsea and for this or that player. What will be most likely happening in the background is Chelsea will most likely be making inquiries on the player side, most likely through intermediaries, because they're telling journalists, right, people who are connected to Chelsea that we're not really looking for defenders. We are good, happy with the squad we have. But what they are actually doing is making inquiries through intermediaries, and gooey inquiry happened before this Liverpool thing has started to evolve, and it happened with Brentford as well. It was apparently immediately shot down, but that inquiry happened. So Chelsea are making those inquiries both, especially on the player side and then on the club side, to understand what exactly can be done later on the market, because that is when Chelsea are more likely to move for a centre back, right? Once they get some of the deals in terms of ins and outs done, and there is clarity, and they get their ducks in a row. And we saw a similar situation with Donarumma evolving. That story we saw with Garnacho over the course of time, and we saw with Jackson as well, when there were rumors and rumblings, and it started to grow and grow, right? So what is happening is basically that this situation is developing. So we will keep an eye on it, uh, and let's see how this develops. But my my understanding is that Chelsea will most likely sign a centre back. So let's not get worried. Let's be calm and see how the situation develops. And again, thank you for this looking at this video. If you went all the way through, guys, if you do like the content, please like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell notification icon. Every bit of love helps. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.